Hey guys, I hope you're doing great today. This is our chapter number 9 of our Azure Fundamentals course AZ-900, and we are going to discuss about Azure Authentication methods. Guys, before we proceed, I have a great news for you. Yesterday, I got a free voucher from Microsoft for Azure Fundamentals. So I just gave a try and I passed the AZ-900 fundamental exam. So if you are following me on this course, I hope that you are going to pass your AZ-900 fundamentals certification. So this would be our chapter number 9, and there are total of 13 chapters. So we are just 4 chapters away for completing our Azure fundamentals course. And today the topic is really simple. We are going to discuss the Azure authentication methods. So before we proceed, make sure that you have subscribed DevOps Molvi. Let's get started with the headline of today's chapter, that Azure supports multiple authentication methods like passwords, single sign-on, MFA multi-factor authentication, and passwordless authentication. So these are 4 major authentication methods that are supported in Azure Cloud. And we are going to discuss each authentication method one by one. So first of all, we must know what is authentication. Authentication, in simple words, you are doing authentication on a daily basis. How? When you start your system, you open the browser, you write gmail.com. Gmail.com asks you for your username, abc@gmail.com, and your password. Now you are authenticating yourself with the Gmail servers. Okay. So that's how we are doing authentication on a daily basis. We are signing in on different platforms. We are signing in on different portals like portal.azure.com. It will also ask me for the credentials. Those credentials are actually authenticated with Azure Active Directory. So this is the process in which we verify the identity. We verify our identity. So authentication is the process of verifying the identity of a user, device, or entity before granting them access to a system or resource. For instance, if I have a virtual machine running on Azure and you want to log in to that virtual machine, so what do you need to log in to that Azure virtual machine? You need a username like root or Ubuntu. For example, if it's a Ubuntu Linux virtual machine. And also you need a password, the username and the password. Now, if you enter the correct username and password, you are authenticated to log into that virtual machine. That is a simple practice. I hope that this does not need more explanation. The system then verifies the user's identity by checking credentials like passwords, biometric data, fingerprint, facial recognition. Now, these credentials are stored somewhere in any database, okay? And if my credentials that I enter match with the credentials that are stored in the database, then I would definitely be authenticated to log in to that website. And for instance, if the username and password do not match, then I get permission denied or incorrect username or incorrect password. So I have shared this a common, really common example of logging into a website with username and password. Now, this is the most basic type of authentication. It is known as password authentication, which is our next slide. Standard password authentication, the most common way of authentication by giving the username and password. The user enters the username and password into the application or into the website. The website or app checks the credentials and matches that the user has entered the correct credentials. If the credentials are matched, the user is granted access. So it means that I can log in to that website. And if the credentials do not match, my access would not be granted and I will get that incorrect username or the password does not match Now, what is single sign-on? This is the second authentication method, and now it is observed in every IT company because you are going to use one credential to log in on multiple websites. Like for instance, if I know my facebook.com credentials, I can use facebook.com credentials to log in, to sign up, or to sign in on multiple platforms, on multiple users. So in the example, I would like to share the CapCut. I use CapCut for video and audio editing. So I log into CapCut via Facebook. So Facebook here is single sign-on. So single sign-on is an authentication method which allows users to access multiple applications and websites with a single set of credentials. So you don't have to remember multiple credentials for multiple websites. Now you need to remember the credentials for gmail.com, your Gmail, like we can use Gmail credentials or Google credentials to log in on drive.google.com or youtube.com, gmail.com, maps.google.com. So now here my Google credentials, like I have shared the example, is a single sign-on. Similarly, I can use facebook.com credentials to log in or to sign up on multiple portals. So this is known as single sign-on. You don't have to remember multiple credentials. You have to remember facebook.com or gmail.com credentials, so you can use those credentials to log in, to sign in on multiple portals. And now additional layer of security. You saw that we started with the standard password authentication, which is very less secure. And then we used single sign on. After that, now we are going to enhance our security and we are going to use multi-factor authentication. And it is also known as two-factor authentication. Why it is known as two-factor authentication? Because it enhances the security instead of relying only on the passwords. And also when we enable multi-factor authentication, not only we use username and password to enter, we also need to enter the code that is sent to another device like mobile phone. Microsoft Authenticator is used to generate time-based codes. Okay, when I enable multi-factor authentication, I would have to add my mobile device, and that mobile device should have an application like Microsoft Authenticator. And after that, when I log in to any portal, after entering username and password, I would need to enter the code that I will get from Microsoft Authenticator app. So this is an additional layer of security, and that's why it is known as multi-factor authentication, because you have to enter the code that you receive on your mobile device, on your authenticator app. So that's why most of the times you have to install it on your mobile devices like Duo Push app or Google Authenticator or Microsoft Authenticator. These applications are used to generate time-based codes, and we need to enter those codes to log in to any portal, to any application. And also, guys, for your information, we have to enable first. We have to enable MFA first. And when multi-factor authentication is enabled, we have to add our mobile device from where we are going to use the codes. And after that, guys, we have Microsoft Entra multi-factor authentication. And it works the same way, just like we have multi-factor authentication, where we receive the code on our authenticator app or via SMS or via a phone call. So Microsoft Entra multi-factor authentication works the same way, and Microsoft Entra multi-factor authentication enables users to choose an additional form of authentication during sign-in, such as a phone call. You will receive a phone call and the code would be shared on that phone call. Or mobile app notification, you can get a push notification with any code. Then you have to enter your code to sign in to Azure or Azure portal. And after that, guys, we have passwordless authentication. What is passwordless authentication? As the name says, where we do not need to enter the password. It is known as passwordless authentication. Passwordless authentication is a method of verifying a user's identity without requiring a password. Now, if we do not need to enter the password, then what credentials are needed? We need biometrics like fingerprint, facial recognition, voice recognition. These are the best examples of passwordless authentication. Passwordless authentication needs to be set up on a device before it can work. Once enrolled, you will never have to use a password. Like, guys, if you are using passwordless biometric banking, okay, and you go to an ATM, you do not enter the card, ATM card. Instead, you use your finger, your thumb, and then your authentication is done. But before that, you have to enroll your biometrics. You have to enroll your thumb. You have to enroll your facial recognition. And once my biometrics are enrolled, then I can use those biometrics to authenticate on any device, on any portal. All right, guys, now this example is a perfect illustration to know which authentication method is more convenient and secure. So you can see that we have high security, we have convenience, we have inconvenience, and we have low security. Now you can see that passwordless authentication is the most convenient and highly secure method. Okay, and if we talk about low security, then just like we discussed, that standard password authentication is convenient, but its security is very low. Passwords can be brute force attacked, password can be leaked. So in order to secure your account, we must use passwordless authentication, and also it is more convenient as well. But if you want to use passwords plus two-factor authentication, it is highly secure, but it is inconvenient. So the final conclusion is that we must use passwordless authentication, which is highly secure, and also it is really convenient. You just have to enter your thumb, you have to give your facial recognition or voice recognition, and then you can be signed in or log in. After that, guys, we have Azure External Identities. Now, what is an external identity? An external identity is a person, device, service that is outside your organization. And external identities are used to collaborate with partners, distributors, suppliers, or vendors. External identities are used by the developers who create consumer facing applications. These are identities that do not belong to your organization. These can be your partners, the distributors, or any third party applications. So we need to create Azure external identities, and then we can use those external identities to collaborate with our business partners, with our IT distributors or vendors or suppliers. Since the suppliers, vendors, and partners do not belong to our organization, instead of creating their account on our Azure portal, we just need to create an external identity so that we can collaborate with them. All right, guys, that's it for today's lecture. We have covered almost all the authentication methods that are used in Azure, like standard password authentication, single sign-on, multi-factor authentication or two-factor authentication, and passwordless authentication. And we found that passwordless authentication is more convenient and highly secure. Which one do you use? Make sure that you must let me know in the comments. I will see you in the chapter number 10 of Azure Security. Make sure that you have subscribed DevOps Molvi. Have a good one and bye.